There comes a point in your life when you have to admit to yourself, you don't have control over everything. You've been trying to fix it. You've been trying to figure it out. You've been losing sleep, stressing your mind, and carrying a weight that was never meant to be yours. You can't control who walks away. You can't control the storms of life. You can't control the timing of your breakthrough. But here's what you can do. You can trust the God who sits high and looks low. You can trust the God who saw the end before the beginning. You can trust the God who never fails. Stop rehearsing the problem in your mind and start releasing it in prayer. Stop feeding your fear and start feeding your faith. Hear me, worry is an intruder. It steals your peace. It robs you of joy. It magnifies what's wrong and blinds you to what's right. And the longer you hold on to it, the heavier it becomes. But faith shifts the weight. Faith says, God, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I trust you. God, I don't see the way right now, but I know you've already made one. God, I don't have the answers, but you are the answer. Some of you are standing in front of closed doors, and you keep shaking the handle, wondering why it won't open. It won't open because it was never your door. But if you stop worrying about what's locked, God will lead you to what's unlocked. You can't control people. You can't control outcomes. You can't control every detail. But you can control your response. You can choose to rest instead of wrestle. You can choose to worship instead of worry. You can choose to release it into the hands of the one who controls it all. So today I dare you, stop worrying. Lift up your hands, open your heart, and say, Lord, I trust you with what I cannot control. Because when you surrender the things beyond your reach, you discover the strength of the God who never lets go. One of the most challenging lessons in life is learning to wait on God's timing and submit to his plan. We live in a world that pushes us to move fast, to make things happen, and to get results instantly. The culture of urgency tells us that if something doesn't happen right now, we are somehow behind or forgotten. But God does not move according to the clock on your wall or the deadlines you set. His ways are higher. His timing is perfect, and his plan is always bigger than the one you imagine for yourself. When you try to force what is not yet ready, you end up carrying frustration, disappointment, and unnecessary burdens. Many people miss the beauty of God's plan because they are rushing to create their own outcome. But you cannot manipulate heaven's schedule. God has already set a divine order, and everything in your life unfolds at the appointed season. Just like a seed planted in the ground cannot be forced to sprout before its time, your destiny cannot be rushed. The soil, the sun, the rain, the conditions, all of these must align before growth can be seen. Trusting God's timing requires surrender. It means letting go of the illusion that you are in control of every step and allowing God to direct the path. You may feel like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, in places you cannot see, God is arranging connections, opportunities, and alignments that will reveal themselves at the right moment. Delay is not denial. Silence is not absence. The waiting room is not punishment. It is preparation. The reason God asks you to trust his timing is because he sees the whole picture. You only see a fragment of today, but he sees tomorrow, next year, and eternity. What feels like a setback to you may actually be a setup for greater things ahead. Sometimes God will withhold what you are asking for, not because he doesn't want to bless you, but because he knows you are not ready to carry it. Other times, he will close doors that look good to you because he has a better door prepared that you haven't even noticed yet. Trusting His plan also means understanding that your life has purpose beyond what you currently experience. Even the delays, detours, and disappointments are woven into the fabric of His design. Every unanswered prayer, every season of waiting, every time you wondered why nothing changed, those moments were shaping your faith, building your character, and preparing you to appreciate the fulfillment when it finally arrives. If everything happened instantly, you would not develop the strength, patience, or wisdom that comes through waiting. When you choose to lean on God's plan, you silence the urge to compare your journey with others. What He is doing in someone else's life is not the standard for what He is doing in yours. Their blessing has a timetable, and so does yours. Trusting God's timing means resting in the assurance that you have not been overlooked, that heaven has not forgotten you, and that every promise spoken over your life is moving toward manifestation. There is a heavy weight that comes from trying to hold on to things that were never meant for your hands. Many of the battles you fight within yourself are not because of what is happening around you, but because of your refusal to let go of what you cannot change. The truth is, there are areas of life that no amount of effort, planning, or worrying will ever fix. You cannot control people's choices. You cannot control the storms of life. You cannot control the passing of time. Yet, the human heart constantly tries to grip these things, as if holding tighter will somehow force them into submission. But the tighter you hold, the more frustrated you become, because life will always remind you that some things are beyond your reach. Releasing what you cannot control is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is acknowledging that there are limits to your ability, and beyond those limits is where God's strength begins. When you release, you are not giving up. You are giving over. You are placing into God's hands what your hands were never strong enough to carry. And the freedom that comes with this release is unlike anything else. It is the peace of knowing that you do not have to have all the answers. You do not have to fix every situation. And you do not have to live your life in constant tension, trying to manage the uncontrollable. Think about how much energy is wasted when you hold on to what you cannot change. You replay conversations in your mind. You relive past mistakes. You anticipate problems that may never even occur. Your thoughts spiral, your body grows weary, and your spirit becomes restless. But none of that worry changes the outcome. None of that sleepless pacing fixes what is broken. All it does is drain you. Releasing is an act of faith. It is saying, I refuse to waste another day chained to what I cannot fix, and I choose to place it in the hands of the one who can. There will always be things that tempt you to grasp for control. Relationships where you want to change someone who is unwilling. Circumstances where you wish you could fast forward to the ending. Situations where the outcome feels uncertain and you want to guarantee your safety. But you are not the author of every chapter. You cannot write someone else's choices. You cannot rewrite yesterday, and you cannot dictate tomorrow. You can only be faithful in this moment. Do what you can with what you have, and then surrender the rest. Letting go is also a form of healing. As long as you clutch what is broken, you keep cutting yourself on the sharp edges of disappointment. But when you release it, you allow God to mend what you could never fix. There are some battles you were never supposed to fight. Some loads you were never meant to carry. Some questions you were never called to answer. The release is not abandonment of responsibility. It is realignment. It is you stepping into the proper position as a child of God, knowing that He is the Father who holds it all together. When you release what you cannot control, you make room in your heart for peace. You clear the clutter of fear, doubt, and frustration, and you create space for joy, strength, and clarity. Your mind becomes lighter, your spirit stronger, your steps more confident. You begin to live in the freedom that comes from trusting that what is too great for you is never too great for God. And in that release, you discover that surrender is not about losing. It is about gaining the life you could never fully experience while still trying to hold on. Worry is a thief. It creeps into the heart, invades the mind, and slowly drains the soul of peace. It plays endless scenarios of what could go wrong, magnifies problems that do not even exist yet, and convinces you that you are powerless in the face of uncertainty. But worry does not solve tomorrow's problems. It only steals today's strength. When you give worry permission to occupy your thoughts, you are allowing fear to become louder than faith. That is why there must be a conscious decision to replace worry with faith, because both cannot dominate the same space at the same time. Faith and worry are opposites. Worry is the belief that something bad is going to happen, while faith is the belief that God is working all things together for good. Worry looks at the storm and says, "I'm going to sink." Faith looks at the storm and says, "My God is greater than these waves." Worry magnifies the problem until it seems impossible. Faith magnifies God until the problem seems small in comparison. The choice you make in the middle of uncertainty determines the atmosphere of your heart. If you allow worry to take root, it will grow into anxiety, fear, and paralysis. But if you choose faith, it will produce peace, strength, and hope even when the circumstances around you have not changed. Replacing worry with faith does not mean pretending that problems do not exist. It does not mean closing your eyes to reality or denying that life can be painful and unpredictable. It means shifting your focus from what you cannot control to the one who is in control. It means saying, "Yes, I see the problem, but I also see my God, and I choose to trust Him more than I trust my fear." Faith does not erase difficulty, but it changes how you carry it. Instead of being crushed by the weight of what you cannot handle, faith teaches you to place that weight in God's hands. Every time worry rises, faith must rise higher. When your mind begins to wander toward fear, faith responds with the promises of God. When worry whispers that you will not make it, faith declares that God will never leave you or forsake you. When worry paints a picture of failure, faith reminds you that nothing can separate you from the love of God. Faith becomes the anchor that holds steady when everything around you is shifting. Replacing worry with faith is a daily decision. It requires discipline to guard your thoughts, to filter what you allow to take root in your heart, and to constantly remind yourself that fear is a liar. You cannot stop worry from knocking at your door, but you can refuse to let it live inside your house. You choose faith as your response, and every time you do, your trust in God grows stronger, your peace grows deeper, and your perspective shifts from fear of the unknown to confidence in the one who knows all things. It is easy to become distracted by what you do not have, to measure your life against what others possess, or to constantly long for the things that seem out of reach. This mindset creates a cycle of frustration, because no matter how much you gain, there will always be something more you think you need. But when you shift your perspective and focus on what God has already placed in your hands, you discover that you are not empty, you are not lacking, and you are not forgotten. You are equipped with exactly what you need for the season you are in right now. So often, people overlook their blessings because they are too busy chasing after what they have not received. They underestimate their gifts, minimize their progress, and devalue their opportunities because they are comparing themselves to someone else's journey. But comparison blinds you to the goodness of God in your own life. The truth is, what God has given you is not small, it is significant. What you carry may not look like what others carry, but it is uniquely designed to fulfill your purpose. Focusing on what God has given you requires gratitude. Gratitude opens your eyes to see the abundance in what once seemed ordinary. That job you complain about may be the provision God is using to sustain you. That small skill you dismiss may be the very seed that grows into a door of opportunity. That relationship you take for granted may be the support system you need in times of struggle. Gratitude takes the focus off of what is missing and highlights the treasures you already hold. When you focus on what God has given you, you begin to steward it well. Instead of despising the little, you start developing it. Instead of waiting for something bigger, you maximize what is in your hands now. The boy in the crowd only had 5 loaves and 2 fish, but in the hands of God, it was more than enough to feed thousands. Your little can become much when you honor it, nurture it, and place it in God's hands. The problem is not what you lack. The problem is often your perspective on what you already have. Every person has been given something. Some have talents, some have resources, some have influence, some have resilience. Whatever it is a deposit from God, and He expects you to use it. If you waste your energy wishing for what someone else carries, you will never develop what has been entrusted to you. But if you pour into what you already have, God multiplies it. What you focus on grows, and when you focus on what God has given, it expands, strengthens, and produces fruit in your life. Focusing on what God has given you does not mean you stop dreaming for more, but it means you stop despising the present. It means you learn to celebrate progress, honor the season you are in, and trust that God has equipped you with the tools, gifts, and resources that are necessary for the journey you are walking right now. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that can grip the human heart. It sneaks into your thoughts, magnifies your doubts, and paralyzes your ability to move forward. Fear feeds on uncertainty, whispering that you are not enough, that you will fail. That danger is waiting at every corner. It causes sleepless nights, restless days, and heavy burdens that were never meant to weigh you down. But fear is not just an emotion. It is a spirit that seeks to separate you from the peace of God. And the most effective way to break its grip is not by pretending to be strong on your own, but by surrendering fear through prayer. Prayer is the place where fear loses its power. When you open your mouth and lift your heart to God, you are transferring the weight of fear from your shoulders to His. Fear thrives in silence, in the hidden corners of your mind, where worries echo without interruption. But when you pray, you bring those hidden fears into the presence of God, and His light drives out the darkness. Prayer is not just a religious ritual. It is a lifeline, a direct conversation with the One who has authority over every fear that tries to control you. Surrendering fear through prayer requires honesty. Too often, people approach prayer with carefully chosen words, trying to sound perfect before God, when what He truly desires is transparency. If fear has been keeping you awake at night, bring it to Him. If anxiety has been clouding your thoughts, lay it before Him. If doubt has been weighing on your spirit, confess it to Him. God is not intimidated by your fear. He already knows the battles you are facing. and He is waiting for you to release them through prayer. The act of surrender is not weakness. It is the ultimate declaration of faith that says, I cannot handle this on my own, but I know you can. Prayer not only removes fear, but it replaces it with peace. When you pray, you are not just emptying your heart of worry. You are also making space for God's assurance to enter. You may walk into prayer feeling overwhelmed, but as you pour out your fears, you begin to feel the calmness of His presence. That peace does not always change the situation immediately, but it changes you in the middle of the situation. It gives you the strength to face what once seemed impossible and the courage to move forward, even when uncertainty remains. There is also power in consistent prayer. Fear is relentless, and it will often try to return even after you have surrendered it once. That is why prayer cannot be a one-time action. It must be a continual practice. Every time fear resurfaces, you surrender it again. Every time anxiety whispers, you silence it with prayer. Every time doubt tries to creep in, you confront it by calling on God. Over time, your spirit becomes conditioned to respond to fear, not with panic, but with prayer. Surrendering fear through prayer shifts your perspective. Instead of focusing on what you cannot control, your eyes are lifted to the one who controls it all. Instead of being consumed by what could go wrong, you are reminded of the one who makes all things work together for good. Prayer teaches your heart that fear does not have the final word. God does. And when you surrender fear through prayer, you no longer live as a prisoner to what scares you. You live as a child who knows their Father holds everything in His hands. Life has a way of pulling you in every direction. The weight of responsibilities, the uncertainty of the future, and the wounds of the past all press against your heart, leaving you weary and restless. You search for peace in achievements, in relationships, in possessions, but nothing seems to satisfy for long. True peace cannot be manufactured by human effort. It can only be found in God. Resting in His peace and promises is not about escaping the reality of life's challenges, but about anchoring your soul in the unshakable assurance of His word. God's peace is different from the temporary calm the world offers. It is not the absence of problems, but the presence of His stability in the middle of them. When storms rage around you, His peace is what keeps your heart from collapsing. It surpasses understanding, meaning it does not always make sense to the natural mind. People may look at you and wonder how you can remain steady while everything seems uncertain, but it is because your rest does not come from circumstances. It comes from the promises of God that never fail. Resting in God's promises means trusting that what He has spoken will come to pass, even when evidence seems to suggest otherwise. His word is filled with declarations of hope, provision, strength, and victory. When you meditate on those promises, you begin to shift your perspective from fear to faith. Every promise is a reminder that you are not forgotten, that you are not fighting alone, and that your story is being written by a faithful author. The more you rehearse His promises in your heart, the less room fear and doubt have to take root. Rest requires surrender. To truly rest in God's peace, you must lay down the urge to fix everything on your own. You cannot experience peace while clinging to control. The very act of resting is an act of faith that says, I choose to believe that God is working, even when I cannot see it. In that place of rest, your heart begins to heal, your strength is renewed, and your spirit regains clarity. Rest is not laziness or passivity. It is confidence that God is who He says He is and will do what He said He would do. When you learn to rest in His peace and promises, You stop being tossed by every wave of worry. You stop panicking when life shifts, because you know the foundation you are standing on cannot be shaken. You stop striving for the approval of others, because you know God has already called you chosen. You stop doubting your future, because His promises guarantee that there is hope and purpose beyond what you can see today. His peace steadies your emotions. His promises strengthen your faith. And together they create a place of refuge where your soul can finally breathe. You have heard the message woven through every part of this word. Release what you cannot control. Trust God's timing and plan. Replace worry with faith. Focus on what God has already placed in your hands. Surrender fear through prayer, and rest in His peace and promises. All of these truths are not separate fragments, but pieces of the same foundation. And that foundation is trust. Trust in the God who knows, who sees, who hears, and who never fails. Because the battle you face is not only in your circumstances, it is in your mind. It is the battle between worry and faith, between fear and trust, between control and surrender. Every time you choose to trust God with what you cannot control, you are declaring war on worry. You are telling fear, you no longer rule my heart. You are telling doubt, you no longer dictate my steps. And you are telling God, I trust you above everything I see. Think about it. How much of your life have you lost to worry? How many nights of rest were stolen? How many moments of joy were drowned in anxiety? How many opportunities passed by because fear convinced you that you were not ready? Worry is not harmless. It is destructive. It does not just visit, it invades. It does not just knock, it tries to move in. But the moment you begin to anchor your trust in God, worry loses its power. Because you cannot carry worry and walk in faith at the same time. You cannot bow to fear and still rise in peace. You must make a choice, and the choice is this: stop worrying and trust God. Release what you cannot control. Let it go. You have been trying to fix people who do not want to change, trying to rewrite yesterday when it is already gone, trying to manage the future when it has not even arrived. That is why your shoulders are tired, why your spirit is heavy, why your joy has been fading. But the truth is, you were never designed to control everything. Some things belong in God's hands. Some situations are too great for human wisdom, too vast for human power, too heavy for human strength. And the longer you try to carry what only God can handle, the more broken you become. But when you release it, when you finally say, God, I surrender this, you will discover that the weight lifts, the chains break, and your soul breathes again. Trust God's timing and plan. Waiting is one of the hardest tests of faith, because everything in you wants the answer now. You want the door to open now, the breakthrough to come now, the prayer to be answered now. But God's plan is not rushed by your impatience, and His timing is not delayed by your worry. He knows when you are ready. He knows when the stage is set. He knows when the connections align. If you receive too soon, you may squander it. If you receive too late, you may faint. But when you receive in God's timing, it will be perfect. Trust Him. Even in silence, He is working. Even in delay, He is preparing. Even in waiting, He is weaving every thread of your story into His greater design. Replace worry with faith. Worry magnifies the problem, but faith magnifies God. Worry drains your strength, but faith ignites your courage. Worry keeps you stuck, but faith moves you forward. You cannot serve both. If worry is sitting on the throne of your heart, faith has no seat. But when you place faith on the throne, worry is evicted. Every time the enemy tries to whisper, "What if it all falls apart?" faith answers back, What if God holds it all together? Every time doubt says, you don't have what it takes, faith declares, God's grace is sufficient. Faith is not blind optimism. It is confidence in the unseen hand of God that guides your steps, shields your path, and guarantees that His promises will come to pass. Focus on what God has given you. Stop despising what is in your hands because it looks small. Stop ignoring the blessings around you because they do not look like someone else's. Stop overlooking your gifts because you think they are insignificant. What you call little, God calls enough. 5 loaves and 2 fish looked small, but in the Master's hands it fed thousands. The rod in Moses' hand looked ordinary, but in the power of God, it split the sea. What you carry may look limited, but when you focus on it, develop it, and place it in God's hands, it multiplies. Focus on your blessings, not your lack. Focus on your gifts, not your comparisons. Focus on what God has already entrusted to you. Because when you are faithful with little, He makes you ruler over much. Surrender fear through prayer. Fear is loud, but prayer is louder. Fear paralyzes, but prayer empowers. Fear whispers defeat, but prayer declares victory. Every time you pray, you are exchanging the spirit of fear for the spirit of faith. You are saying, God, I cannot handle this burden, but I know you can. You are saying, God, I refuse to let fear write the story of my life. And in that place of prayer, God begins to shift your heart, calm your mind, and strengthen your spirit. Do not just pray once. Pray until peace comes. Pray until the chains break. Pray until the fear loses its grip. Because prayer is not just words. It is warfare. And it is the place where your fear is surrendered and your faith is renewed. Rest in God's peace and promises. After you have released, after you have trusted, after you have prayed, there comes a time to rest. Rest is not laziness, it is confidence. Rest is not quitting, it is trusting. Rest is not ignoring your problems. It is placing them in the hands of the God who is bigger than your problems. His peace surpasses understanding, which means it does not always make sense to the natural mind. You can be in the middle of a storm and still feel calm. You can be surrounded by uncertainty and still feel steady. You can face opposition and still feel secure. That peace is not from this world. It comes from God, and it is anchored in His promises. Promises that He will never leave you. Promises that He will provide for you. Promises that He will fight for you. Promises that no weapon formed against you will prosper. Promises that His plan for you is good. When you rest in His peace and His promises, you stop striving, you stop panicking, and you start living in the assurance that God has it under control. So hear this: your life is not held together by worry, but by the hand of God. Your future is not dependent on fear, but on His promises. Your destiny is not determined by what you cannot control, but by the one who controls it all. Worry has taken too much from you already. It has stolen your sleep, your joy, your clarity, your energy. But today you draw the line. Today, you declare that you will no longer bow to the weight of worry. Today you choose trust. Today you choose surrender. Today you choose faith. Today you choose peace. Because the God who holds the universe together is more than able to hold you together. The God who commands the seas is more than able to command your storm. The God who keeps His promises is more than able to keep you through every season of your life.